My 25F boyfriend, 20M, bought my sister's 30F son one of those cars for toddlers and she isn't happy. Basically my boyfriend always wanted one of those growing up, so he thought her son would also like one for her birthday. So for his birthday he bought her son a Power Wheel. The damn thing was $700. Loudly crying. Like damn, I grew up playing with $5 dolls. My sister and her husband got their son a remote control car. When my boyfriend brought out the Power Wheel, he lost his mind and played with the whole time. He didn't really touch the remote control car. My sister called me afterwards and said she's upset that my boyfriend tried to show up her and her husband. But that wasn't his intention at all. He always wanted a Power Wheel growing up, so he thought her son would also enjoy one. But she's not budging. What can I do next? I've seen this kind of thing before. Parents feeling upstaged by an expensive gift that the child likes more than what the parent bought them. It can feel like someone is trying to be their child's favorite, and that can get some defenses up real fast. It's an emotional response, and if you push her to rationalize it out will only cement differences between you. My advice: humbly apologize. Hey, we really didn't think of that, but we understand. There's no guarantees in life that a gift is going to go down well with someone, sometimes they don't. I used to get annoyed at people giving my child big bars of chocolate. It's interfering. My 28M ex-girlfriend, 31, is pregnant. My 28M ex-girlfriend, 31F, is 3.5 months pregnant. So 4 months ago I found out that my girlfriend was cheating on me. I tried to stay close to her for a couple of weeks since we lived together, but nothing seemed to work and I decided to leave her. We broke up and I started dating another girl a month later. My ex-girlfriend heard about this and she confronted me saying that she was a month pregnant. She even told my, around that time, girlfriend. I talked to her that time and told her that I'm going to assume the responsibility, but we weren't going back together. She stormed off and told me to F off, cut contact with me, and I didn't know anything about her until now. She texted me today asking me what I'm going to do about the pregnancy. She's 3.54 months pregnant and needs support. I was thinking about doing the right thing and help her with the medical bills and all that. But I don't want to go back together with her. I'm single now, but I don't see myself with her in a relationship. Also, since she cheated on me, I'm doubting about me being the father. I'm thinking about asking her a DNA test when the baby is born. We are going to talk in a moment about this. And I'm not sure which is the correct approach in these situations. Ask for paternity test considering she was sleeping with other people. Also, don't put yourself on the birth certificate as it's extremely hard to get out of financial responsibility or get your name off the birth certificate even if you're found not to be the father until someone else is willing to step up. Take one step at a time. Good luck. Why are you assuming the child is yours? Get paternity test, then figure out. She is far enough along that one can happen, I believe. Insist on a paternity test, and insist on participating, having all original documents. Don't rely on her word. This could easily be manipulation, in fact there's a good chance it is. If it turns out not to be yours, block her in every possible way and never speak with her again. If it is yours, then it sounds like you'll do the right thing. But you'll owe her nothing more than child support payments and a civil relationship for the sole purpose of co-parenting. I cried in front of my girlfriend for the first time and regret it. My GF, 20, and I, 19. Have been dating for 6 months and have known each other for a year now. We had a rocky start which led to us cutting it off for 2 months but got back together. There have been a few rough patches, but we have gotten past most of them besides a few. This incident happened early on in our relationship and I sort of swept it under the rug to try and convince myself that I was not thinking rationally and in the hopes that I'd forget about it. But I remember it every so often, and today I've decided to get some advice. For some context, I went over to her place to see her after we both had been at classes for the day and I had been to football training. During the course of the day my mother had told me that my grandmother was not doing well and that my mother had little hopes that she would make it through. I was not really close to my grandparents when I was younger, but as I've matured, I've grown to enjoy their company and cherish these moments that I have with them. I also study on the other side of the country, so I barely get to see them during the year. I'd become really close to my grandmother as she was the only person in our family that drove a manual car and thus taught me how to drive. Carrying on, I arrived at my girlfriend's place and tried my best to not let this affect the time that I was going to spend with her, but I didn't succeed. She asked me if everything was all right, To which I replied, "Yay, I'm all good." We carried on catching up, but as the night went on I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I started tearing up whilst laying next to her, and I remember what felt like the most awkward silence that had ever happened between us. She then asked again if I'm all right, and then I just started crying. I've never really shown emotion in terms of sadness and being heartsore to her because I've always wanted her to feel like she can ask me for help when she is feeling down or anything. I just wanted to be her safe space. After about a minute or two, I wiped some tears away to find that she had left the room. I was confused as there was just a lot running through my mind, and eventually she returned. She sat on the other side of the head of the bed whilst I was sitting on the foot of the bed, and it felt like there was a barrier between us. After a couple of minutes of pure silence, I asked whether she was all right. She was hesitant to respond, but she then said, "Yay, what's going on with you?" I then told her the situation and how I was feeling, and it then became silent again. Towards the beginning of our relationship, she has told me to open up my emotions and express them to her, and I'll be honest, my whole life I had just bottled them up. Also, for some context, my grandfather had passed away this previous December whilst I was on holiday, and I had handled it pretty well, but have always felt like there were some neglected feelings of mine. I always thought that I handled people passing away and the possibility of people passing away pretty well, but I decided that that day I would open up how I felt. After the silence, she told me that she didn't know what to do and didn't want to intrude. I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm pretty sure that just a hug would have made me feel better. I was a bit disappointed and didn't want to exert that behavior towards her, so I decided that I would leave and go home. We still haven't spoken about that situation, and I haven't brought it up because I'm afraid that she is just not interested or won't see me as the same man that I am. Any thoughts or opinions on this matter will be greatly appreciated. I called my ex at her work when I found out my grandma had passed, and I was crying, and she instantly came home and held me. I'll never forget that moment. I feel like you got robbed, and that's not okay. Big difference between when my ex held me when I cried and stroked my hair to your girlfriend basically fucking off away from you. She ain't it, mate. She was embarrassed. Not someone to have around. I think there are a lot of shitty women out there that say they want men to be vulnerable but then actually don't. It's really not that hard to comfort someone even if you don't know what to say. Give your man a hug and let him cry into your chest. She didn't comfort you and just left you alone. And on top of that you already had many issues within 6 months? It doesn't sound like the best relationship. What I got out of this is she could care less what you are going through. How do I convince my husband to give me another chance? To make things clear from the get-go, I love my husband with all my heart, and the thought of not being with him is unbearable to me. He is the most amazing person I know, he has the biggest heart, the kindest soul, and I am lucky to have him. We have been together for 10 years, married for 5. Like any couple, we have had issues over the years, but nothing we couldn't resolve. There is one problem in our relationship that has been a constant over the last 5-6 years, and that is my weight. I have always been overweight, including when we first met and when he asked me to marry him. I have been up and down with my weight during our relationship, and I would say I was almost always on some sort of a diet and exercise routine, only to lose a bit of weight and then gain it back. He supported me in my efforts initially, however after a few years of this pattern he became unhappy and miserable and lost interest. At the start of 2022 it came to a point where it became such an issue that I told him to give me until the end of the year to sort myself out and get in shape, for the relationship, but for me also, as it's been a major issue for me forever. Only in the last 2-3 months I finally did it by taking a different approach to weight loss. I have a lot of trauma from childhood and my way of dealing has always been food. I have been working through my issues via journaling, reading a lot of self-help books and intermittent fasting. I am now at a healthy weight and determined for these changes to be long-lasting. I still have work to do in other areas, such as self-esteem and self-worth, so there is still a way to go. He is happy with my weight loss and how I look, but understandably he is skeptical as to whether I can keep the weight off and make lasting changes, given how many times I disappointed him and myself in the past when I lost and gained the weight. He is also hurt that I wasted 8-9 months of this year by not making any progress, and only when it came to the end of the year I finally did it, knowing what's at stake. Yes, I understand how it would make him feel like I didn't give a damn in the past, but that's not true at all. My weight struggles. My issues with food have crippled me all my life, and yes, I wish I made changes sooner, but I didn't. I wasn't strong enough. I tried and failed, over and over. Now that I've done it, I feel strong and hopeful for the future. He says he loves me still and I believe him. Looking back at these years, especially the last 18 months or so, he could have left me a long time ago and he didn't. I know we are worth it and we can have a great life together. The last thing I want to is to let him down again by putting the weight back on. He has asked me to tell him why he should give this another chance, another 6 months perhaps. How is he to know things won't go back to how they used to be and I pile the weight back on and we end up right at the start? How can I persuade him to give us another chance? Okay, you're married to an idiot. You've never misrepresented yourself, you're the person you've always been. I'm not talking about your weight, because that's maybe a part of who you are, but that's not you. Why should you have to beg for this man's attention when you're constantly striving to be the best version of yourself you can be? What has he done to be his best self? He's making it seem like you have to prove you're good enough for him, but you don't. Just work on being good enough for you and tell him take it or leave it. Either he believes your relationship is worth working for or he doesn't.